Hello everyone, and welcome back to more AEW on TEW 2020. We are here in the second week of April, out here in 2022. We're starting off with our show of Dark as Ham's Katana picks up a win over Mary Dobson with the charged forearm. I will have to check with Connell and Doom about their finishers. Ace Austin then defeats Michael Nakazawa. Then the Troop the Elite are seen practicing for some elaborate entrances, with Raywold someone acting as a director and choreographer for the group. I forgot to make this to a storyline. As they're doing this, Tully Blanchard and his crew walk by, and Raywold interrupts them to ask for their opinion on the entrance. Rather than Tully speaking, Tony Deppen actually starts talking, and he says that no one in AEW or the audience gives a rat's ass about the Troop. And Dalton Castle is then heard saying that no one really cares about Tully or any of his team either. That Tully's always been the fourth member of the Four Horsemen, the forgotten Four Horsemen. Davey Boy Smith Jr. was just the inferior version of his dad. No one really knows who Fred Yehi and Tony Deppen are. And that angers Tully and his group, but Tully's just like, alright, you know what, ignore them. We don't really care about them. And they continue walking on. Segment ends. Ray was like, alright, well, we still gotta get this going, this. Troop the Elite, they're all about the fancy stuff. Tully Blanchard, no fanciness, just down to business. Makes sense for a feud, I just forgot to turn that into a storyline. Killer Kelly and Jordan Grace draw with a double countout. So they get into it on the outside of the ring, and eventually are both counted out by the ref. As they continue to fight on the outside, Killer Kelly takes advantage of the fact that the match is now over and starts using cheap tactics and cheating now that she can't lose the match anymore. She begins getting ready to choke Jordan Grace with her signature metal chain when Lavender Sky's music hits, and she rushes out in an attempt to make the save. Killer Kelly and Lavender Sky brawl for a little bit until finally backstage crew is able to separate the both of them. And they get Jordan Grace out. Jordan Grace not too injured, especially when compared to a couple weeks ago when she was brutalized in the ring by Killer Kelly. Nyla Rose then defeats Rachel Rose. Not intentional. Rachel Rose currently part of DPW. Nyla Rose scoring worse than Rachel Rose. Fantastic. Queen Lupa comes to the stage after the match. Of course, former Ember Moon. She glares down Nyla and she says that if Nyla wanted this match so bad, she could have just called. Nyla may be the Queen of Beasts. Even the Queen of Beasts cannot stand against a werewolf like Lupa. She acknowledges how good of a wrestler Nyla is, but says that there is always the experience edge that she has, and Nyla doesn't have the skills or experience to cover up for her glaring weaknesses. Yeah. Then the Heat defeat Lee Johnson and Sonny Kiss, trying to find some teams for either of those two. Lady Bernice then defeats Vipress in one of her longer matches of the card. I actually think this is our longest match of Dark. Devon Dudley then defeats Trent. This is not actually his return match. He did have a match on Elevation when I did that as a thing off screen. But this is his first televised match back. After surprisingly winning, Devon Dudley calls to the outside for his sons to get the tables. They are unsurprisingly intercepted by Chuck Taylor, but Devon gets back into the way, beats down Chuck. After the numbers game takes over, Devon stacks Chuck onto a table. He tells Terrence and Terrell to hit a 3D on Trent. They do, through the table, and onto Chuck. The cult stands tall. Of course, they're not actually a cult. They just believe in the good word of Adam Cole, who has risen from the dead. They're a cult. Shotzi Blackheart then defeats Julia Hart. Julia Hart with a nice 16 performance. And our main event, Kota Ibushi defeats Brian Cage with a Tiger Driver. Our show of Dynamite begins with a big 8-man tag as the Bullet Club are defeated by the faces Cody Rhodes, Hiromu Takahashi, Eddie Kingston, and Jon Moxley. Cody Rhodes pins Doc Gallows with the Beautiful Disaster, probably after a Crossroads. Mox outscores everyone, 87, Takahashi 77, AJ 74, Cody 72, Kingston and Carl in the 60s, Sky and Gallows in the 50s. And that is fine. All hell breaks loose almost immediately afterwards as Alex Hammerstone and El Phantasmo slide into the ring to continue the brawl, being met in turn by Jimmy Shane, Lucas Fenrir, and Brock Anderson. Both sides have completely filled the ring as a bunch of people backstage start pouring out. Brock Anderson finds himself, he's thrown out of the ring. We can barely see what's happening. I'm probably imagining that's like Hammerstone is, like pushes Jimmy Shane off for a little bit. He then manages to toss Brock Anderson over the top rope, and he lands right next to Priscilla Kelly, who had been assisting the Bullet Club from the outside ring, because Priscilla Kelly's not going to get involved. There's all these big, meaty dudes, and Priscilla Kelly's better than that. Then Brock, rather than fighting Priscilla, which, he's a good guy, even though he's marked as a heel, he's still a good guy, he doesn't get in the ring, he just walks towards the side of the ring that the faces were all on. Backstage staff, they've managed to separate the groups with a lot of effort, and eventually they escort the Bullet Club out of the arena. There's quite a bit of force involved in that. Priscilla Kelly willingly follows the Bullet Club as they're escorted out. The faces are all in there. Just a massive clusterfuck going on is what's really the big thing here. After this, the Briscoes are seen on their farm, and they are cutting a promo about the Hit Squad. They say, so, some city-slicking, violence-loving gits are going up against them boys. Look, y'all two ain't nothing intimidating. We ain't scared of two little rascals trying to play villain. It's them boys who are the real threats out here in the tag division. It's them boys who are the people y'all gotta be scared of. Yeah, them Bucks and those other acronym bastards are good, but there's a reason we got something round our waists that y'all don't. We know how to win. We've been winning for years. You shit little brutalizers, whatever the hell you want to call yourselves, ain't got shit against us. And their promo is interrupted when Mark begins smelling smoke, and the two turn around to see that one of their buildings is on fire. They rush off to put out the blaze. They're not gonna turn off the camera. They have a building on fire. Eventually, the Hit Squad kind of just sneak in frame. They kind of just like crouch down right next to the camera, and probably Xavier, right up there, just Hawk warned you. We'll do anything to win. They then just take the camera, and they shut it off. They're heading off. They've taken the camera, and presumably, they've set fire to the Briscoes' buildings. Brutality Inc. has mainly just been doing things in-ring that have been a little bit cheap. They've been using weapons. They've been being general bastards, but now they're legitimate criminals, which... Arson is fun, says the Hit Squad. Not me if you're listening, and FBI, whoever. Nakamura defeats Jacob Fatu with the Kinshasa, so let's be real. Only barely outscoring Fatu, probably because Shinsuke, slow and steady, fighting physicals. Also because he probably was holding back. Devitt comes to the ramp after the match and he has a mic. He asks why Shinsuke asked for a fight against Fatu instead of Devitt when the fight versus Devitt was the challenge that was laid out, and Shinsuke just gives simple answer, I wanted a warm-up. Before leaving, he walks past Devitt, pats him on the shoulder as he leaves. Shinsuke hadn't had his first match yet, so give him a match versus Fatu. After this, Hangman is seen in a bar. He has an AEW belt around his waist. He has an unopened bottle of whiskey beside him. And he says, so it comes to this, Cole. Does it? I wasn't there for when Kenny and Matt, Nick, and Cody did, what they did to you. I don't know why you're blaming me. I'm as much to blame as anyone else that was in the Bullet Club at the time. But I suppose it doesn't really matter. Kenny made a mistake. You paid for it. I need to clean up for it. I don't know what happened to you, Cole, but I'm sure there's something that needs to be done. Needs to be done. I don't know if your death or whatever screwed up your brain, but you're not a zombie cult leader or whatever it is you're trying to be there. You're just Adam Cole. You're just Adam like me. You were friends with them too at one point in time, and Kenny's changed since then, and you can too. Then gets up, walks away. Probably the camera does a little cute thing. As it fades to a commercial, zooms in on the whiskey bottle like, hey, this is unopened. FTR then defeat Proud and Powerful, the Shatter Machine. Santana, easily the weak link. Afterwards, Jurassic Express come out onto the stage. Jungle Boy talks about how he agrees with the premise behind these matches, that the tag division hasn't been getting as much use as it should. There's plenty of teams that are on the roster that just want more. So Jurassic Express asked to join the little protest tournament, as they've called it. Eventually, Motor City Machine Guns and Top Flight come out. They say the same thing. Matt Hardy says, hey, all of us want to get involved with that. Matt Hardy makes his way to the ring. FTR and Proud and Powerful kind of back me up. They're like, okay, what are you doing here? Matt Hardy calls out to Paul Heyman that until there is more use of the tag division, he will not rest. He will interrupt shows time and time again. He will sit in until Paul gives in. I'm imagining like FTR, Proud and Powerful, they're not too comfortable with this. You know, they were doing fine. They didn't want to risk any ire from management, but they're kind of stuck here now. Heyman then shows up on the screen. He looks exasperated. He says, all I wanted when I agreed to be head of talent management was for a stable ship to run. Instead, I have Chris Jericho vandalizing my office, Ashley Flair demanding that I give her preferential treatment, now a full-blown attempted coup in my tag team division. There has been problem after problem after problem, and now, well, I would be lying if I said I wasn't sick of it. But sponsors have been strict lately with Rampage coming up, and so I have no choice but to acquiesce. Now, we have plenty of tournaments going on right now, but with the introductory tournaments to the new Rampage era, 2 new titles to add. But if you want to all get out of my ring and stop interrupting my shows, I would be glad to run whatever tournament you want. Just let my shows go on. Heyman is sick and tired of all these things going wrong for him. After this, Kana defeats Abaddon, not surprising. After beating Abaddon, Kana offers to help the zombie up to her feet, but Maki just gets between them, says no to this interaction. Maki, she's getting up close with Kana, and Kana, she's not backing down. Maki is way more crazy despite Abaddon being a literal zombie. But nevertheless, Kana is right there. She's waiting for it. She is staring down Maki. Abaddon gets up. Maki helps Abaddon out of the ring. Maki, she's staring down Kana the entire way. I'm imagining there's probably some amusing moments where, like, Maki walks a little bit too far. Like, bumps into the not backstage, like, onto the Tron. Like, kind of imagining the usual AEW set where they have the 2 tunnels, like, bumps into that middle part there and then heads off. By the way, I hate the face and heel tunnel thing. I think that's stupid. So, it's not here. That's a flavor thing, I'm just gonna say right now. I hate the face and heel tunnel thing, and it's not in this AEW. After this, Mayu Iwatani is being interviewed by Renee Paquette about the next contender, Utami Hayashishita. Mayu goes over her history with Utami, and she constantly puts Utami over as one of the toughest opponents she's had, and especially for someone being that young. And almost as if on cue, Utami enters the shot, she gets right up to Mayu. Mayu, she stands up, you know, imagine we have these traditional, like, interview chairs, you know, it's, you know, not necessarily, well, they're kind of wooden chairs, and they have, like, almost a canvas seating on it. Mayu gets up from that, she has her belt on, but before Mayu's even fully stood up, like, trying to do that face-to-face that they do at MMA weigh-ins, Utami just starts beating the shit out of Mayu. She's going at it. She eventually starts using shots with the belt, and Renee, she just runs away. Probably Utami at some point just sets the belt down very respectfully after a couple of shots. Very respectful to the belt, not so much to Mayu. And after Utami is more or less content with the beatdown, she goes in, slightly taps the belt on the faceplate, and then leaves. Mayu is in a heap in the corner of the room, beaten down by Utami Hayashishita. And in our main event, Brock Lesnar defeats Chris Jericho with an F5. Not a surprise there. Oh, what in the hell is going on? Oh, my keyboard still has some weird things with it. Brock and Heyman then leave the ring afterwards, content with taking out Jericho. But before they fully leave, they're surrounded by the Inner Circle. Sammy Guevara is the main one to speak. Like, I'm imagining it's probably Hager's between the entranceway and Heyman Lesnar. Ace Austin is behind them. Sammy Guevara also behind them because those two are the smaller ones, but Sammy's probably a little bit further back. He has a mic. He says, even if they've taken out Jericho once, they're far from done with him or with the Inner Circle. All of Guevara, Austin, and Hager, Sammy says, all of us here, Chris Jericho isn't just himself, he also has us, the Inner Circle, backing him. And we challenge Brock Lesnar to singles matches, all of us. And Heyman's like, no, why would we do that? That's dumb. There's no reason to do these matches. Brock starts taking initiative. He steps up to Sammy, maybe pushes Ace Austin beside a little bit, and he just says into Sammy's mic, he's not gonna get his own mic, he says, you know what, I respect how ballsy you are, Sammy, but all of you are honest about wanting to fight me. So Brock agrees to the singles matches, and Heyman is a bit scared about this, surprisingly. Show ends, we have the shot of probably, I'm imagining, Sammy on the right, Brock on left, Paul Heyman kind of out of focus in the middle. He looks absolutely terrified, a little bit worried, as our show gets a 79, very good rating. That's pretty normal here. If popularity looks different, I'm not sure if it does. Again, I had to edit Pop a little bit just to get Rampage in as an actual show. What I'm going to do for that is, since we need 77 in a couple regions in order to get to big size to have that third show, I am going to artificially keep those all at the regions I moved up to 77 to make it to big. I'm going to keep those at 77 until everything else catches up. So there is that. We are a big company officially. WWE is still larger. They still have about 6 pop points ahead of us. Also, WrestleMania was the past weekend in-game. Goldberg is now your WWE champion. He beat Daniel Bryan in the main event. That's fun, but that's neither here nor there. And we move on to Rampage.